Welcome once again to Syntax Error, your pretentious philosophical pedantic podcast ostensibly about video gaming and related topics therein. Warning, this podcast contains mature language, content, and spoilers. You have been warned. Welcome back to Syntax Error. Today we're doing the top games of 2015 with a bit of a caveat. I'm Scott Thurlow, of course, as always, joined by Stephen Omosi.
Hello.
And Jonathan Ian Manzer.
Hi.
And the caveat I mentioned is, ostensibly, we began this show to talk about video games, but then ironically, the amount of work we put into our podcast allowed us for much less time to play them. So we're going to be sort of stealing a ZP-ish line, if you will, that we'll talk about the games we did play, and maybe there were other great games out there that we didn't get to play. So I will start off with my number one game of the year. It was on many other lists that I saw, I think deservedly so. It's funny that you guys we all thought actually we might probably end up putting Fallout 4 automatically as number one, but I'm voting The Witcher 3. It was just, again, it's sort of kind of like the Oscar thing. Check out our Oscar episodes where, yeah, I voted now a sprawling open world epic fantasy game 2 years in a row as the best game, but it just was awesome. It was so good, and CD Projekt is such a great developer that The Witcher kind of just, it came out earlier and it kind of stuck in my mind still, even in the Christmas season of games and all the other big ones came out. So that's my number one. What's yours, E?
Well, I will begin with a caveat of my own.
We all have caveats here.
My tastes in video games have been evolving over time. I don't really have time anymore to invest in a AAA game that takes hours and days to beat. I've become a huge fan of indie games.
Yep.
Those 4-hour, 6-hour type that you can just pick up, I can beat, feel accomplished. Because like Fallout 4 you mentioned earlier. Yeah, I started playing it. I enjoyed it, but I haven't had the time to go back to it. It's been weeks since I played it, and now I feel kind of weird going back to it that I don't really remember where I was.
Yeah, no, that's definitely like a known effect, sure, and that's all legitimate.
So my number one is going to be, it's not a 2015 game. It's actually just came out, 2016, but it's the only game recently that has inspired me, The Witness.
Yes.
It's exactly what I want. It's a Myst-like game. I loved Myst as a kid. I love puzzle games. I love puzzle, like cryptograms, Sudokus. This is exactly made for my type of personality, and it's my number one.
There you go.
All right, Steve-O?
I am going to probably say Fallout in this. There were a couple other good games that would rival it on my list, which I'm sure we'll talk about shortly. But I am almost done with Fallout at this point. Probably put 100 and plus hours into it.
It'll tell you exactly next time you look at it.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look. But I've gotten pretty far, done a lot of side missions, and this game kind of reminded me of what Fallout was, and I've kind of been waiting a long time for it. So I was happy with how it came out. So Fallout is, you're right, probably the de facto number one on my list.
Not to make this political, but to make this political. Fallout 4 to me is the Hillary Clinton of video games. It's pragmatic. It's giving you what you expect, but it's not inspiring.
It's not doing anything different. I mean, I sort of get that. It's funny. So allow me to.
The Witness is the Bernie Sanders. I'm actually driven to passion for it.
Well, I'm voting.
But Fallout 4, I just want to make. I played a lot. I've been following Bethesda for a very long time.
We all have, sure.
This feels like the most generic, workman-like game that they've produced, the Fallout or the Elder Scrolls series. If I had to compare it to Elder Scrolls, this is the Oblivion of the Fallout universe, and Oblivion was the most mediocre of the...
I mean, I get it. Well, I'm definitely voting The Witness in the next political election if it's the Bernie Sanders. But, I mean, that's all valid, and I think it's a good segue because I was coin flipping between Fallout 4 and Metal Gear, Phantom Pain, as my number 2 and or 3. Like, I still kind of am coin flipping it, but I think at the end of the day, I'm going to bump, for the reasons you said, E, I'm going to bump Fallout 4 into the number 3rd spot, putting Metal Gear at number 2, because that game was just, I'm still not done with it, admittedly, but I played a lot of it, and it's just so, there's so much to it, and some of it you could say maybe feels unnecessary, but it all has a purpose, whether or not you use it, I guess I want to say.
Right.
And it was just a great game, it's so much fun, so... The writing, of course, is Kojima, so it is what it is.
Well, honestly, I also have Metal Gear as my second game of the year.
Okay.
And I really love the ridiculousness that is Kojima's writing.
Sure,
like,
I mean...
you can have your nitpicks and like you could say what you want about it, but at the same time, it's this like over the top epic adventure that he always seems to produce.
No, I mean, let's be clear. The game never lets you forget that this is a
Right.
Kojima production, etc. But I mean, I agree. Sure, I'll go back quickly to The Witcher. That the writing in that was just so realistic. Where of course it just isn't in Metal Gear. But not to say it's bad or anything. It has its own little style,
which is
feel.
very ironic considering
Yes.
The Witcher is set in a
Yes.
fantasy
I mean,
world
it's
and
fun. Yeah, the characters. I guess I want to say the characters are well realized and feel real, even if it's a fantasy setting, and the voice acting is top notch. And while it's sort of like. I said this about Dragon Age as well, and it's going to be true broadly that yes, you're on a epic, in quotes, epic fantasy adventure, but it feels more personal because you're living through a certain character's, life and journey and his backstory. If you're a fan of the series, they have a lot of nice little nods and connections to the previous two games, but you don't have to know those to enjoy this one. So similarly, this is actually also the first Metal Gear game I've owned, and I'm going to play all the way through. I've dabbled in various others. But I think I've mentioned on various casts, Steve-O, you're
right. I've played. I
more
played
about
all
it.
of the
Yeah.
mega console release.
Right. So,
games.
but this is the first one I really got into and bought for myself, and I'm quite enjoying it. And it's obviously not the same vein as the old Metal Gear games, but it is a great open world stealth game with so many options, so many things you can do, and some things are funnier, some things are a little over the top, but it's just so solidly put together. So that's why I think it wins out over Fallout, where, like you just said. There's nothing wrong with Fallout 4. It's perfectly fine. I played through it. I did all the faction quests and endings and so forth. But you're right. Like, it just wasn't quite living up to the hype that we thought it would have going into it. And they didn't. Yeah, they have all that crafting stuff, but that can sort of take it or leave it, really, to me.
Well, I know a lot of people that really love that stuff.
Sure,
but if you're not really into it, which I'm not really super into it, it's kind of interesting.
Maybe,
but
kind
of falls to the wayside.
Yeah, exactly. All I'm saying is it has nothing to do with the plot, so like it's almost like you could just get the what's their creation kit, the GEC that they put out for modding. You could have done that with mods anyways, like essentially.
And you could have done more with mods.
Yeah,
You wouldn't have to
exactly.
deal with broken happiness systems.
Exactly. So it's fine. So I guess that's my number 1, 2, and 3. Cody, what do you got for us next?
Number 2, I'm doing The Vanishing of Ethan Carter.
Good pick for sure.
Where the witness is a trip to an art gallery. The Vanishing Ethan Carter is kind of going to a slam poetry.
I quite like that description.
It's short, has a lot of like exciting moments to it and unexpected, and it has this kind of both innocence and harsh reality to it. Where the witness is sort of from the Chronicles of Narnia, the magician's apprentice, the first book when he's traveling to strange worlds. This is The Vanishing Ethan Carter is very much like a Stephen King short story.
I would say, of course, you hate this.
Or Ray Bradbury type
You hate
story.
this term, but I always describe it as Lovecraftian. It feels like a Lovecraft short story, kind of, to me.
This thing is,
But
I
I largely am agreeing with you.
they had the Lovecraftian elements, but I feel it's more kind of something wicked this way comes.
All right. You know
It
what?
has that kind of childish
I certainly give you that. That's a good one, actually. Really
imagination to it, and
Okay.
I that really drew me in, and it was short and sweet, and definitely worth a playthrough.
I agree. It's quite a good pick. It's just that I happen to, again, personally, I was able to play more games than everyone else. So I definitely enjoyed Ethan Carter, and we'll speak about it on our Walking Sim ep, so check that out. But I agree with all the points you made about it.
And then for my third one, I picked the Game of Thrones Telltale series.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much because I particularly liked the game mechanics. I mean, the Telltale games, if you played one, you played them all.
Right.
But I'm a Game of Thrones fan, and they really captured that world very well. And you got to see interesting aspects. Like you get to play through King's Landing and the politics of that. And they never felt really forced with the cameos. Everything felt natural to it. So it really felt like playing through a season of Game of Thrones, and I appreciate that because I'm a huge fan.
That's actually perfect. Another perfect segue. Yeah, that's a great one. But I have as my next spot Telltale's Tales from the Borderlands.
Well, hold on, because I haven't given my third one yet.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Sibo.
So
That's such a good segue that you're fucking it up.
Sorry.
Go on.
Fallout was my first one. Metal Gear was my second one, and then my third one is a game that neither of you have played yet, which is Bloodborne.
Yeah.
The spiritual successor to the Dark Souls games.
We mocked it briefly last season.
We did,
but I do.
And then I
mean to
played,
play- yeah.
and then I played Dark Souls, and then I had to play Bloodborne
Sure.
after that. These games are incredibly difficult, but they're so rewarding when you actually get through something that seemed impossible before. They're all games of like progress by inches, and every inch feels earned.
Or
and,
death by inches.
Yeah.
But I know exactly what you mean. We briefly touched on the From Software sort of paradigm,
right,
if you will.
Right.
I was a big fan of Demon Souls. I haven't played the Dark
yeah.
Souls or Bloodborne, but I feel that if it is in a similar vein, I would have
You would
put
enjoy it,
Bloodborne on my top 5 list as well.
And it certainly was
Yeah.
on other outlets put it on their list for sure.
It definitely. I haven't played through Demon Souls yet, although I still have it in my list because you let me borrow yours. But
So maybe
Bloodborne captured what I liked about Dark Souls, except for Dark Souls was a fantasy game, whereas Bloodborne is more of a horror game, and it really gets you into the world of that horror that's going on.
You know, actually, I'll sort of go back on what you said. Bloodborne is Lovecraftian, like for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Way more than Ethan Carter.
So much.
Was,
There's just so much
100%, you're right
weird
about
stuff that's thrown into the world, and none of it feels like forced. From Software does such a good job on those games of making their worlds feel real and making you learn every single inch of them too, because you have to go through them so many times and die so many times.
You have died for sure. But no, I mean it's funny. Like I just mentioned, we mocked it, and then I saw you play a bit of it. And after reading other reviews and so forth, that I kind of was interested in playing it, just haven't gotten to it. Which we'll mention. As Ian made a point earlier that we don't have as much time anymore, so it's nice to have quicker indie games we can get through.
Mm-hmm.
Bloodborne is the opposite of that. And
right.
In fact, because of the nature of it, you're going to have to pour a lot of hours into it. Kind of same thing with Fallout, but certainly it was fit in other lists, and you're putting in yours. It seems to be as good as everyone claims it is.
Yeah, it was a terrific game.
Even if we, originally were going to ignore it completely.
Right.
But no, so back to my original segue. Yes, I could definitely see myself putting Game of Thrones in my list E, but I just think everything you said about that one is applied to the Tales from the Borderlands, and I just kind of fell in love with that world. It won out over it, but it was, it's like you said, it's the same thing as you played one, you've seen them all, but the characters are so well realized. So while it had some of the same feel to it, that they got, whoever adapted it for a Game of Thrones did a perfect, knew the world very well. And same thing with Tales from Borderlands. The characters are super interesting, and they did a lot of good references, and cameos were not forced, but they did bring in characters from the full-length games, the Gearbox games. So yeah, I mean, I could see myself putting both on, but just that one just happened to win. But they did a great job on both. And those ones are actually a good point, like sort of a nice cut-up that you can get through those easily enough, and they really, they're episodic, so...
It's 6 to 8 hours for those.
Probably, if you did them all in one run, probably that's about right. So it's very doable, very manageable, but I mean, I, of course, played them as soon as the episodes were released, so it's sometimes with months between them. But no, they were all very good. And
that's actually, I think, the biggest drawback from Telltale games is you definitely lose something by having to wait long between. I would actually... I have a habit of waiting for games to fix all the bugs.
That's also a very good point, yeah, sure.
And Telltale games are definitely worth the wait for them all to come out and then buy them. I actually kind of wish they'd release them all at once.
Well, they sometimes do, like they'll do like a season. They'll release a season maybe discounted or whatever. But of course, you have to wait for the end. I often do the opposite. You may have convinced me that this year I may, in fact, wait for that to happen. But I'll usually buy what I did at least with Game of Thrones and Telltale or Tales of Borderlands is to buy the season pass. I've already paid for them, but I'm still gonna be waiting between. However long it's going to take them.
To continue to derail this conversation, it would be sort of like if they released a Game of Thrones season with waiting months between each episode. It would be like watching the Venture Brothers.
Sure.
Where you have to wait years between seasons.
Well, it'd be like they release 4 episodes, and then you have to wait another month and a half, and then they release 4 more episodes.
Or whatever, yeah.
So, again, I think it's a weird strategy, but they seem to know what they're doing on other parts. So
No, I agree with that. Yeah. So they're both well done. And my final number 5 game is another indie-ish sort of one. It's SOMA. So that was done by Frictional, the people who did, I believe, the first Amnesia. It definitely was the feel of Amnesia, like style. Not quite walking sim, so I'll touch upon that later. But its themes. I read an article that I didn't agree with it 100%, but what they were getting at was SOMA sort of a spiritual successor to BioShock, and it kind of was... That, at least in terms of trying to introduce a philosophical consideration to you within the game. So I really liked it. I played through it twice, actually, just to see some of the different things. There's a couple, they're not like major choices, but you can do a couple different things in it. And it was just a great little experience, and I ended up writing an article about it, which may or may not be released. But it sort of not to the degree you were saying about the Witnessy, but it definitely sort of inspired me. It was like, this is the game for me. This is the game I wanted to play. And I quite enjoyed it. So that'll be my final one.
So for 4, I have Fallout 4.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you do that just to get that, or is it actually your 4th game?
no, because the 5th one's going to be weird.
Okay.
But I'm giving this a begrudging score because it deserves recognition for its achievements, but it's a disappointment to me from what came before.
Mm-hmm. I largely agree with that sentiment as well.
I don't know. Bethesda's gotten too
You're gonna say almost they might be saying they got lazy, but not quite. But comfortable is a great description. Definitely.
So now my number 5 is I imagine that I'm the only person in the world who has this on their top anything list. 3/4 Home, which I'm ranking number 5, and I played other games, so this isn't a forced one. For the sheer chutzpah.
Yes.
That
that it took the devs to release such a game.
Yeah, I mentioned this in one of the bonus points, but
Yeah.
it's reading one of your friend's short stories while holding down the R2 button so that the car drives. If you release the R2 button, the car stops and the narrative stops, so you have to keep driving.
It's an amazing mechanic, apparently.
And,
yes.
yeah, so you go through this entire story, and someone released their short story with a
bare bones game mechanics.
Yeah, with a game mechanic in order to elevate it beyond something else. And then they added, it was the extended edition of 3/4 Home. So there's another story afterwards, which you're waiting at a bus stop, and you can walk back and forth.
Serious? You didn't tell me about that. That's really funny.
And you're on a phone call with your mother that takes place before the events in the game.
So wait, so they didn't combine it so now it's 5/8 or whatever plus that anyway.
Well, I guess you were negative 1/4
Sure.
the way home before.
Sure.
Nonetheless, it wasn't great, but it was new. I haven't seen anything like this, and I feel that in my youth,
you think you will see something else like it after?
No, I feel in my youth, if I had, because I wanted to be a writer when I was in my long time ago in my early 20s, and I would, if I had the ability to program, I would have done something as stupid as this person did. So good on you.
Fair enough.
I'm giving you credit for balls.
Giving him credit on that. All right. What do you got, Steve?
All right. So my 4th game is going to be. It's a game that came out before 2015, but it was ported to the PlayStation,
which we agreed pre-podcast that counts.
And right, and that's going to be Shovel Knight, which is put out by Yacht Club Games. It's a really great throwback to old Nintendo games. It's similar to DuckTales and Mega Man and just all those really great platformers from back in the day. And it throws in so many little extras that I mean, I beat the game. I probably missed 30% of it.
You missed a lot of secrets and so forth.
There's so much extra stuff in there, and when you find it, it's really cool. They have a couple really great mechanics. There's checkpoints throughout the levels, but you can destroy them to get extra jewels and to take extra money, stuff like that. They just took a lot of really good ideas and put them together very well. So I'm gonna give Shovel Knight my 4th one, and my 5th one is a game that kind of blew up out of nowhere, I think, and I think most of their success is probably owed to the PlayStation releasing it for free right after it came out. This was Rocket League, released by Psyonix, and this is a really strange game. It was basically soccer with cars.
Yeah, that's the pitch. Soccer with trucks.
Yeah, and it worked really well, and it was a lot of fun for the amount of time that you play, and then it's just boring after a while. But in the time that you're playing, I did a couple seasons of the single player league, and then I played a bunch online with other people, and it's just a lot of fun to play while you're playing it, and then it kind of loses its luster when you realize that every game kind of feels pretty much the same.
Yes. Well, I was going to say it's fun to play if you say so.
Right.
I myself, because of what you mentioned, that they gave it out for free, so I tried it, and you had told me at the time, you're hey, try it. It's really cool. It's really fun. I'm like, all right. I, of course, am not the biggest fan of sports games,
right?
But I gave it a shot, and I played for maybe 5 minutes. I was like, yep, it definitely is soccer with cars. They weren't lying, but I'm moving on now. So, but in other seriousness, I did see Rocket League on other outlets' Game of the Year list because you can have a lot of fun with it. Mostly online is what I think
a big part of it was just being able to play soccer with cars with your friends. Going online and playing soccer.
I don't want to play soccer with my friends in real life or in video games or with cars, but certainly I can see why people put it on their list.
But would you play soccer in cars in real life?
Yes, I would play soccer in cars, definitely.
Only if I had rockets on my cars.
Yes, if that game comes out, I will be playing it. So, I mean, those are all fine picks. I like them, and I usually do an honorable mention, which was Mad Max for this year. And I just want to sort of take this time to go on a quick tangent about it, kind of. I feel bad for this game, in a sense, because it was a good game. I liked it. What I heard about it, a lot of the other reviews I read or saw, was that it was a cookie-cutter game. That is to say, they took like basically an Assassin's Creed-ish template and slapped it into a Mad Max game. But my rebuttal was, that isn't necessarily bad. It worked pretty well within the setting. My Rocket League was driving around the wasteland of Mad Max and blowing up cars. Like, that was fucking fun to me. It had a pretty good story, decent, like, yeah, not amazing, but perfectly fine. But it also released the same day as The Phantom Pain. Right. And I think it sort of got buried, like, and also got overshadowed by the movie certainly this year as well. So I'm not sure, like, they probably tried to, like, capitalize on the movie's popularity, but people love the movie so much, they're like, yeah, game can't be as good as the movie, and I don't think it is, but it's still a perfectly fine game. Like, in other years, some things were slightly changed. I may have actually put it in my my list itself. But it was still a great game, and I enjoyed it.
I'm somewhat surprised you didn't give Hotline Miami a mention.
I'm going to as well. Right. Like that one's also really close because I think it was a good game and I enjoyed playing through it in the week or so it took me to do that. But of course, as I mentioned another cast, and I'm always going to say that really the soundtrack is the best part of Hotline Miami. So I probably spent way more hours just listening to that at work and other places than actually playing the game. Yeah. But sure, it was fun. When I did play it, but then I was done. I wish you could buy the soundtrack. I wish I'd let you buy it on your PS4. They do that with other games, so
they absolutely should.
That's an episode for another day. But either way, I want let's go through some of the games that we saw that were released that either A, we didn't play, or could have been in our list maybe, or that looked interesting but just weren't. Right. So one for me is started off with this one last year a bit. Resident Evil Revelations 2. I thought was pretty damn decent. Yeah. I had a good time with it, but it just wasn't quite amazing. They did a decent job with it, and it was episodic, so it wasn't quite as, I don't want to say egregious, but the wait time wasn't as long as the Telltale stuff. There was also only 4 chapters, I believe. It was a fine job, and I enjoyed that as a return to the Resident Evil world. There's 2 other things. On another personal, 2 other games that came out that I've been waiting to play that I bought when they released, but I haven't even started yet. Assassin's Creed Syndicate was supposed to be quite good. Haven't played a second of it. Just Cause 3. Just Cause 3 is an interesting example. I don't know if you guys heard about this. When it released, it was full of, like, people were saying there's 15-minute loading screens and, like, shit like that, and, like, the frame rate was all fucked up. Yeah. So they had to release a day 1 patch or a week 1 patch or something like that. I'm hoping by the time I get around to playing
luckily it. You waited now.
Yeah, like Ian was saying, like, maybe in this case I kind of lucked out because if I wait enough, they'll fix all the bugs and so forth.
Well, I learned my lesson from Fallout New Vegas. Which would just randomly crash.
Yeah. Vegas was kind of notorious for that, sure. Yeah.
So I waited until they fixed it and then played.
Well, Bethesda games in general are kind of bad.
Are known for that, sure. But actually, speaking of that, as a public service announcement, in case anyone hasn't noticed, they did release a Fallout 4 patch to address a number of issues. So, but you're right.
At this point, it's probably like a month and a half ago or so.
Maybe, yeah, that's true.
When you're listening to this.
By the magic of time. What else? Like, I'm not sure if I did this in a bonus point or not, but they did a remaster of Grim Fandango, which is a game I loved as a kid, and I actually enjoyed it. Probably enjoyed it more so playing through now because I got some of the jokes that I just couldn't understand them as a kid.
I wish they'd release more LucasArts games.
I think the problem is the licensing or the whoever the ownership of all that shit.
Like, I loved Indiana Jones and The Fate of Atlantis. Back in the day. That was
that's kind of a classic one for sure. What else? You guys got anything on your list?
I played Hand of Fate.
Yeah, that's it.
It was interesting. I don't remember much about it. It didn't capture me. A lot of these games, were you saying they're kind of forgettable or just overshadowed by others? Yeah, like I would say Oddworld, New and Tasty, I enjoyed a lot. Again, very much like Grim Fandango, I loved Oddworld as a kid. Right. I don't want to give it points for nostalgia. In fact, I deduct points for trying to play off my nostalgia. So this will be my honorable message. I enjoy the gameplay, I enjoy the puzzle elements, and I enjoy the atmosphere of the game. But I want to judge newer things as more important.
That's completely fair, and you're free to me segues today because that sort of is a consideration for Mad Max for me because you guys might remember my excitement. Like, dude, the Mad Max games come out. I'm really excited to play it. So I'm not sure if I would have rated it, given an honorable mention, were it not for my nostalgia for that franchise. However, I still think they did on its value as a game. They did a pretty good job. I didn't experience any bugs. I don't believe. I don't recall them any. And again, I think if you were a new to the franchise and picked up Mad Max, you probably would have had a good time with it.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I was gonna say that I enjoy nostalgia if it's done well, but if it's done badly, I absolutely hate it. But
sure.
That being said, not really franchise, or absolutely not franchises that existed before, but in like Super Nintendo or Nintendo styles, I have a couple games on my honorable mention list.
That.
And Shovel Knight is the same way, but one of them was Titan Souls, which was a fun game. I didn't finish it, and I didn't get as far as I wanted to.
You didn't beat all the bosses?
No.
Do you know how many there are?
I'm not sure. I probably beat maybe half of them,
sorry,
but like
I didn't mean to do that. Good.
And then the other one that I wanted to mention was Super Meat Boy, which was finally released. This is actually a pretty old game that came out for.
Well, Meat Boy is old, and they
right.
Of course they retouched it up and so forth. Yeah.
But I remember playing this, on Newgrounds or whatever back in the day.
Yeah, that's right.
Which that game was fun as well. Super Meat Boy was fun as well. It's just a really fast-paced and incredibly difficult platformer.
I played a bit of it as well. We were talking about it when it came out, and yeah, it can be fun, and then it becomes super frustrating.
Right.
This game is so fucking hard, but it's cool enough. Sure. What else you got?
I also played Stealth Inc. 2, which was fun. I might go back to it. It's fun, and it's a fun little puzzle game, but it's not as attention grabbing as I want a game like that to be. It was good. Like, the bosses were interesting, but not like amazing, that type of thing. And then one other game, I don't even know if I should mention this. Maybe
do it anyway.
This is a game that I absolutely hate. This is getting my Razzie.
All right. Actually, that's a good one. The game that you hated the most this year.
Life is Strange.
Yeah.
I played it for maybe 3 hours, and I hated every minute of it. It was basically 3 hours of exposition about this teenage girl's life. Like, the worst exposition I could ever imagine.
You don't want to spend 3 hours listening to a teenage girl tell you about her life in video game format?
I just didn't care so hard.
That's kind of 3/4 of the way home.
Yeah, that's funny because that description is apt, but you're giving it credit just because it has essentially the balls to release itself as a game, and like, here you go.
I know a lot of people love that game. I know a lot of people love Life is Strange, but I absolutely hated it.
You said that to me, so I took your opinion on face value, and then I started, checking out other things that said, "Oh, it's really well written and characters are really well done."
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm not sure if I can believe that, and I still haven't played a second of it. But my Razzie would probably go to something like, let's see, I railed about it in BP, but Broken Age really disappointed me. I was not taken with it at all, and in fact, haven't finished it. I have no plans of doing so. And may kick it off my PS4 so I can clear up some fucking space.
Yeah, I could only do like 45 minutes of that game too. I tried, and it was boring, and I didn't care.
Yeah, exactly. So, you got one, E?
I don't know if it counts because it's on my list as the top game as well. I would say that Fallout 4 gets my Razzie for the year.
It's a bold move, but again, it's interesting. We're definitely going to do a Fallout 4 final, but certainly the points we made are valid.
I made artistic points to The Witness and Vanishing Ethan Carter.
Right.
Fallout 4 is it's the new Star Wars movie that just came out.
That's really funny.
It's Avengers 2: Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Whatever substance existed in the Marvel and Star Wars movies has been lost over the years because of their success, and they've now churning out more and more crowd-pleasing, light fluff popcorn, and that's what Fallout 4 is.
Steve was making a face at you, but I agree with that to an extent, maybe not to the degree that you just said, but I think that those aspects are valid. Would you have a rebuttal there, Steve-O? To that specifically?
Not without getting into a whole long tangent.
Right.
I don't quite agree about Star Wars.
I do.
We did an entire episode about that, so...
Sure. I mean, and we're going to do a Fallout 4 follow-up, when we will delve very deeply into this discussion. But
is Avengers 2 a good parallel?
Yeah, Avengers 2 was not very good, but I still hold out hope for a Civil War, so we'll see where that goes.
All right. As I recall, in our Mott's episode, you liked Avengers 2 well enough. But
yeah, I did like it, but it was very much not what Avengers the first one was.
I wouldn't want them to make a game of it because I'd probably put it in my hated list, but sure, all that's valid. So I don't know, it's kind of harsh that we just didn't have enough time this year or as much time to round it out. Like I would be hard pressed to make 10 games, and you guys probably even more so if we had to do it, top 10 of the year list. But I played the ones I played again, like I said, the ZP caveat, and that's what we thought of them. So, and certainly there's others that are coming out soon that I may wait on. Like, for example, the next Far Cry Primal's coming out
Right.
this year, or in this next week, I believe, from the date of this recording. But I may wait to get that, similar to like waiting for the episodes
The new
and so forth.
Uncharted is supposed to be coming,
Right.
right?
I think they pushed it back. In fact, it's coming out this year, but I think they pushed it back. You just me think of this same thing. The new Deus Ex got pushed back to later in the year.
As much as I was railing against Fallout 4 being popcorn summer flick,
That's what Uncharted is.
but Uncharted is not trying to be anything.
But does it
that.
well? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I'm a big Indiana Jones fan growing up. That was my trilogy.
Oh, it's yours. You own it.
No, but you know how people go like the Star Wars
Yes.
trilogy, or that was the trilogy I grew up on, and it reminds me of that. So
No, that's
I'm looking
completely
forward
fair.
for the fourth one.
Yeah. Again. So yeah. So that's pretty. Let's.
And I'm slowly turning into Sully.
Yeah.
I hope it's well done.
You
Although
definitely are turning into Sully.
I was a little bit disappointed by the third one, and the second one was awesome.
Second
to
one was
me.
the best
that was
one
amazing.
for sure so
Yeah.
far, or at least we agree upon that, I believe. Sure. Well, now we're just thinking of episodes, but no, like I think that's not bad that we can look, project what's coming out 2016 and what you're looking forward to,
Mhm.
and what you may be able to play and put in your next year's
Yeah,
list.
well,
but that's definitely one of them.
I'm very much looking forward to Doom, and also
Yeah, that's a good point. Doom's
and
coming out
also,
in May, I believe.
Dark Souls 3, I think, is coming out this year. Right?
Yes, it is. It is indeed.
If I may project for a moment, it's going to be a bunch of garbage and nothing like my youth.
All right. Well, nothing ever will be. But I'll touch one final thing about Fallout that they just announced Bethesda recently, the DLC, like what they're going to do for that. If you guys saw that, it's that here's exactly why it's sort of a microcosm example of our divide about how we think Fallout 4 turned out. Two of them are things like, oh, you can build robots now. Okay, there's no story to it though. You can build other shit. Okay, and then there's one that's going to be a story thing. So like, again, yeah, that's nice, but it isn't what I come to Fallout for.
Right.
And I think, like you said, they're
Minecraft,
just
of
doing,
course.
yeah, community service, apocalypse style. But I want to touch up on some things we missed, like Halo 5 came out last year. None of us played that.
Well, nobody has an Xbox.
I wasn't going to. I was considering getting an Xbox One last year, not for that specifically, but to other exclusives.
I just looked it up. Nobody, it seems, has an
Yeah,
Xbox.
that's true. We're doing an episode also near and around this time that we'll explore that as to why perhaps no one may have played Halo 5. I don't know. Again, the ones I played, like I said, The Witcher just sort of was early on head and shoulders above anything else I played. That it was almost impossible for anything to overtake that, and it set such a high bar. So even though that we thought, like Steve had said to me outside the cast, like late October, something like, you think Fallout 4 is going to be Game of the Year pretty much automatically? And I was like, yeah, probably, maybe. Like, The Witcher is really great, but come on, Fallout 4's got to win. But no, and then Metal Gear really not surprised me, but I got into it way more than I thought it would.
Right.
Even, again, like I said, not really having as much of a background with the franchise, but it was just so well done, and the mechanics were great.
Yeah, those games tend to be super immersive, and it's just once you get into them, you're kind of into them until you finish.
But if only someone could explain the plot of Metal Gear.
Oh, funny you should mention that, because
we will try.
we here at Syntax Era will be attempting to do that sometime this season as well. But yeah, so I don't know, you guys got any other games either that we may have forgotten or you wanted to mention from last year or looking forward to?
No, I think that's pretty much
Witness
it.
apparently is Ian's already. He's going to vote it best game of next year without.
I won't, maybe. But for all of you dad mindset people out there who are looking for a dad video game, that's what
this is one. Yeah, sure.
It's unabashedly not for the youth. It's for people who are interested in sitting down with the Sunday crossword puzzle in the local newspaper. And
right. Well, I guess
this is a video game for senior citizens.
Well, I guess what you're saying is you're not Nathan Drake anymore, so now Sully just sits down and plays the witness instead. So yeah, sure. I mean, that's funny. It's a ringing endorsement from old Uncle Sully Ian here. So I think that'll do it. Like, like I said, my picks may not have been the most original ones, but I think they were the obvious ones.
Yeah.
To go back real quickly, I do want to play Bloodborne. I'm going to borrow it from Steven himself.
Yep.
Soon enough. Or eventually, at least. But certainly, like, again, I feel somewhat bad that we mocked it, and then it ended up, apparently being a really great game. And, it's also funny, you guys gave me, kind of busting my balls when when I said how it's Lovecraftian. You're like, you love Lovecraftian stuff. Why wouldn't you get this game? Like, but sure, I mean, so those are the ones we played this year that we were able to, and what we thought of them. Certainly, probably other people had way more time to play way more games and may differ from our opinion, but those are the ones we got. No,
They don't have the time to
maybe,
make podcasts.
maybe when all you fine folks start paying our bills, we can spend all day playing games we can talk about.
Whatever games you want us to play, we'll do those ones.
Exactly.
When you pay us to do it. So I think that'll do it for Syntax Error tonight. I, of course, remain Scott Thurlow. I am number 1 on the top podcaster of 2015, joined by Stephen Amosi.
I like to think I'm number 5.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And Ian Manzer rates himself as?
Number 1 from 1968.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We'll catch you next time. Good night. This has been Syntax Error. Thank you as always for listening, and we will see you next time.
Music by Stephen Armosi. Editing and engineering by Scott Thurlow.
Syntax Error is part of a Lost Signals Productions. All rights reserved.